Hello, Amber.
Hello.
Today, you've asked for training for your daughter to apply deodorant.
Yeah.
So it's a social skill, so it's a really good target to be working towards. So when we're teaching this skill and teaching the learner how to apply deodorant, we're going to start by doing this. Some of the steps that we're going to go through, because it'll be new for her, is we're going to go through a social story. So what I would like is I would like this social story to be read to the learner at the beginning of each session to help the learner reach mastery and stuff. So each session should start with this every day for the first 2 weeks when needed by the student. So the social story is very basic. It just says, I'm a young girl, I'm growing up, sometimes my underarms will sweat and feel wet, sometimes they will smell bad. Now I'll need to wash with soap and water every day. I dry off, I put on deodorant, it keeps my underarms dry. Now I smell good, I will put on deodorant every day before I put on clothes. Deodorant helps, now it's part of my daily routine. I realize that she has her daily grooming, she's mastered this, and that what we're focusing on is putting on the deodorant. But I've added in the piece that sometimes you smell bad because it's good to now make Julia aware that her body is changing and these hygiene is an important part and will have an impact in her day. So that will be the social story that we start with. From that, after introducing the social story, we're going to move into having a task analysis. But prior to the task analysis, I believe it's important that we do imitative. So let's just really show Julia what's happening and the expectations of putting deodorant on. I think using a doll is a really good way of showing this skill. So what we do is we have a doll here and you will show her. So what we'll do is we'll say like this, and we'll follow the task analysis even with the doll because it helps Julia to really make the match between both of them. So for example, put on deodorant. So put on deodorant. So then the next thing we do is take off lid. And you can even point to put on deodorant, take off lid to make Julia pay attention to what the task analysis is and how it's matching with the doll. So turn bottom, arrow, and there's an arrow on both sides, and then you just turn bottom, arrow, take off lid, turn bottom of the arrow to the red mark, and we've marked it. So we want to make sure the deodorant is always marked because that will give Julia that visual clue that she needs as to the expectations. So just turn the arrow and it's an arrow on both sides, so it doesn't matter. The minute she turns it, it's right in the right position. Then we talk about put the white part of the deodorant in curve of armpit, and this is where it's really important to show Julia where you're going to apply, because we don't want Julia thinking, well, apply deodorant means from the fingertips down all the way down. So we want to really give her an indication of where we're going to apply this deodorant. So this is the curve of the arm I'm going to show. Put deodorant in curve of arm. Go up and down. 1, 2, and it's done. So up, down, and then it's done so that she knows 1, 2, and it's now put in the curve of the armpit. Then we want to repeat this and we want to put deodorant on the other armpit because there is 2. So we go on this side and we go 1, 2 in the curve of the armpit. Then when we're done, we're going to put the lid back on. And this is where we're going to reinforce Julia by following the stimulus to putting deodorant with 3 minutes on YouTube. And then you'll have the iPad ready and then she'll have 3 minutes on YouTube. Now with that as well, you can use the timer within the iPad to time and give her that stimulus that it's now time to be off the iPad and stuff. And that's the basis of where we're going. So this is the test, this is the social story, this is the task analysis, this is the imitative part with the doll. Now, the imitative prompt will help her learn and to fulfill her task. As you're doing this, some of the things that you'll need to do when you're going through the prompting hierarchy, you may need to have the doll nearby to help Julia to show her and give her some of that imitative prompt so she can see the guidelines of where of what you're looking for and what you're trying to achieve. You can also fade that to giving Julia verbal prompts and prompting her verbally, take off the lid, and then, whatever comes next. You want to fade those prompts as quickly as possible. So you would fade that to a gesterial prompt to the task analysis, meaning that then instead of just saying take off lid, you would point to the task analysis taking off the lid. So here we go. We've done, now if there is an error, we're going to be looking at the error interrupt. So you're going to make sure that you give the SD again, and you're going to increase the prompt level to help that learner respond correctly. Which means if Julia's doing this and she's made an error and say she's forgotten to take the lid off of the deodorant, we're going to error interrupt and we're going to give her the SD again, take off lid, and you're going to increase that prompt level to respond to it. So by increasing that prompt level, we're going to do some errorless teaching. So you're going to give the SD again, and the errorless teaching would be that you would move in and rather her than her. So just grab it and pretend that she just. So I say take off lid, and you're going to make an error, and I'm not going to allow it to happen because you have say taken this and put this under your arms right away. I'm going to take you. I'm going to help you take off lid, and then I'm going to fade away to see what you can do next and stuff. So that's errorless teaching. Move in right away to make sure that you don't allow her to make that error because we don't want her to learn how to make errors. And then again, we would, you can reissue the SD for it, and then and wait those 3 seconds. And give her some time, and give her time to reissue the SD and wait 3 seconds for her to respond. So if she does more, if the learner errors more than 3 times, we want to really use verbal prompts for the rest of the teaching session, because we don't want her to learn errors and we don't want her to become dependent on full physical prompts throughout the session. So let's move right into those verbal prompts for the rest of that teaching session for her success and for her to see successfully what she can do. Now, we also need to collect data. Data is a very important part for ensuring that she's mastering and being able to generalize her skill that she's learning with putting on deodorant. So here's the teaching steps. So when we look at the teaching steps, step 1, we present the task, put on deodorant. The learner will pick up the deodorant. We cannot forget to give her some verbal praise, that we should be praising her for this. Verbal praise is important, so you say, put on deodorant. She picks it up, good job, great job. Then if she takes off the lid, so the next presentation of the task would be take off lid. If she takes off the lid, again, you continue on with verbal praise. If she's following the next step, again, you can give, and going to turning it to the red mark, you can give her a thumbs up. Again, it's giving that social praise. And the next step, putting the white of the deodorant, do the white of deodorant in the curve of the armpit. We move on to that verbal praise as well. We also want to remember the 5th step, and again, it's verbal praise, and she followed that task. Putting on deodorant in the other armpit, learner follows the same actions for the armpit, and then reinforcement is given 5 minutes of YouTube. These are all the presenting of the task with the expected response and the consequence. So it's all laid out here quite clearly for you. And again, we're looking at what we're trying to acquire our steps on. So we're looking for generalization. We want to make sure that she can generalize across, and at least 90% across both parents. And let's just look at some of these steps that we're looking for. And we have 5 steps here that we're following. And we just want to date and see if she's reached that generalization. So takes off lid deodorant 3 days without verbal prompts. If she does that, then we're going to date it. And then we know she's done it 3 days in a row and she's mastered that generalization. And the same with the other steps that are laid out here that we're looking for generalization. And then we have maintenance mastery checks, and we want to make sure that we collect this data to show that for 3 consecutive maintenance mastery tests to move to the next step. So we need to have mastery 3 times in a row before we're moving on to the next step to show the mastery for each step. So the suggested skills that I'm looking at that we target are applies deodorant with only verbal prompts, applies deodorant using visual task analysis, that leading up to applies deodorant independently. We're going to make sure that we follow up with this with me coming back on the second day after the program initiation, just to make sure if there's any questions or anything that you're not sure of, that we can look at the program and ensure that we're approaching appropriately and that it is leading towards success for Julia. Then we'll follow up 1 week later, then 2 weeks later, and then 1 month after the initial week. We're going to gradually increase that space between follow-ups to determine that mastery and any steps that you're having difficulty, that we can review it. So here is a checklist that we're going to look at. We're going to get you to pretend that you're teaching Julia how to put deodorant on, and I'm going to be Julia, and let's see how you do, and let's see if you're able to, how many yeses and how many no's, and what areas that we need to focus on that we're not able to, just for us to remind you as to the areas that, okay, I need to remember to do that. I've also left a task analysis of applying deodorant and data collection for that as well, because collecting this data will help us come up with percentages and show us Julia's success and where she's reaching her independence for mastery. And filling out this data is really quite simple. It's the total task analysis and the steps that are in within the task analysis, and putting the date, so day 1, and then, so the day 1, did she put on deodorant? The SD, did she follow the SD put on deodorant? And there's a little scale here that you can follow. She either did it independently, verbal prompt, imitative prompt, gesture, partial physical prompt, or full physical prompt. And these are just the guidelines. So rather than writing out the whole thing, just follow this scale here in this guideline to fill this chart in quickly. This is really important because this chart will give us a clear identification of areas that Julia needs assistance with in becoming more successful in doing this independently. And of course, we're looking for independence for Julia. So let's have a look here and see where you would start. How would you start your day with Julia? And I'll put the task analysis in front of you, and so that you can follow some of these guidelines. And so it's the beginning of the day, and where would you go with Julia? How would you start your day with Julia?
So we're going to start with the social story.
Yeah.
Okay. So we read it to Julia. So I'm a young girl. I'm growing up. Sometimes my arms will sweat and feel wet. Sometimes they will smell bad. Now I will need to wash with soap and water every day. I dry off. I put on deodorant. It keeps my underarms dry. Now I smell good. I'll put on deodorant every day before I put on clothes. Deodorant helps. Now it's part of my daily routine.
Awesome. I love how you pointed to each picture to indicate that where you were on each step reading that social story. Great job.
Okay. So next we're going to show her how to do it on the doll. So we're going to say, put on deodorant. So grab our deodorant, take off deodorant lid, turn bottle of dial to red mark. I'm going to show her how to turn the dial around. Then put white of deodorant on curve of armpit. So I'm going to show her where the curve of the armpit is.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to show her how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to get up and down twice. So go up and down twice. 1, 2, 1, 2. And then I'm going to put it on the other arm. And we're going to go the same thing. Show her where the armpit is. And then go up and down twice. 1, 2, 1, 2. Put on lid of deodorant. And then I would allow her to watch her 3 minutes here, or after she does her.
After
She does hers. Now I would prompt Julia to do the same thing using the task analysis. So I'd give her the deodorant, put on deodorant, take off lid. So I would show her, let her take off the lid.
Mm-hmm.
and then we would turn the bottom of the dial to the red mark, put deodorant on the curvy arm, go up and down twice, show her to do it on the other arm, put lid back on, and then I would give her
The 3 minutes and
the
then
3
you do.
minutes of YouTube.
So that's really good. You've done really excellent. And so while you're doing all this, we need to remember you're checking off when she starts doing this with the task analysis. You'll use this information to collect that data. So that's excellent. Don't forget that when you're doing the task analysis, the verbal praise and that social praise is really important, that she's being given that praise throughout learning of applying deodorant. Are there any questions that you have?
No, I think that was very good.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.